As the countdown continues to the Icon Suspension International Speedway Masters, we proudly present our feature interview with the legendary Leigh Adams. The 10-time national champion and former world-class international will be honoured for his extraordinary contribution to Australian Speedway on night 2 of the Speedway Masters, when many of the world's best riders contest the Leigh Adams Medal. Leigh, terrific to see you, and it's just brilliant to be back in Mildura. It's been a long time for me and for the crew. Tell me about life these days.
Pretty quiet. Yeah, look, I just back in Mildura, just, kind of running my farm, as much as I can do. My parents help out, my brother helps out quite a bit. We got sort of 10 acres here with oranges, and kind of do that. Probably before I got injured, I started to build these little junior speedway bikes, and I think I did probably about 20 before I got injured. And then when I got injured, I thought, right, that's it, it's all finished. And Declan said to me, nah, you'll be right, we'll get a lift, and I'll be able to help you out and set you up. And back when he was here, he kind of set me up, and I'd just work away and do my day's work. And look, we've probably done about 55 of these little junior bikes, which is pretty cool. It's I actually get a real kick out of, we'll have a winter series here, and there'll be no crowd, no nothing, a junior speedway meeting, and I'll look out and see 4 of my bikes in a race, which is really cool. And that's what I set out to do, is try and inject some new bikes into the market, because that's what I was after. And obviously it was a passion of mine. I went through the junior speedway, and then I had Declan, and this is number 1 just sitting here. So that's kind of my life. And in the workshop I do a lot of dirt bikes now, but pretty much come out here every day doing my thing.
Tell me about the oranges. Was that always part of the plan?
Not really, no. We bought, it was weird, this house, I used to push bike past here, pretty much every day doing my training. And I used to look up the driveway and think, man, I'd love to have that house. And it wasn't until, it was probably my last 2 years or 3 years in England, and we were actually looking for land around Mildura. And my dad actually rang me and said, the estate agent's got some land, he's gonna, and I was back in England, so we were all set up back there. And he said, the estate agent's gonna show me some land today. I said, yeah, that's cool, great. And he drove past this place, and he said to the estate agent, he goes, that's what they're after, something on a hill, And he goes, that's coming up for sale, I just valued it the other day. So pretty much it just steamrolled, and we knew what it was all about, the house. It was built by the Kellys, and we bought it in England without even seeing it, or we didn't know what we were getting ourselves into. So again, it had sort of 5 acres of oranges, and when I bought, I was always brought up on an orange farm and grapes and all that sort of stuff. And I kind of got into it, and I kind of enjoy it now, Tappy, just to get on there, and I can actually get on a tractor and drive a tractor. We've got hand controls and everything on there. So I enjoy just getting on, doing me spraying, no phones, no nothing, just cruising along. And it's a hobby farm, completely hobby farm. But it's good. I love it.
Leigh, I don't want this to sound like a silly question. Off the back of your injury, how different is your life in terms of what you do on a daily basis and how you're set up and what your future looks like? How much does it differ to what you perceived as being the plan originally?
Well, my plan...
Apart from the obvious.
Yeah, like don't get me wrong, my plan was to come back, kind of semi-retire, run my farm, and just enjoy life and travel and all that sort of stuff. It's weird, the easy things in life become very hard. In fact, like getting dressed. Just to get dressed is a mission, it's pretty hard work. You're on the bed, and the simple things come hard. But to be honest, when it happened, I sort of just sat back and thought, well, I'm dealt these cards, you just got to get on with it and do what you can. And it's surprising, every day you kind of challenge yourself. Even now, I think we're 13 years in, I've been in a chair, so every day you get challenged. There's things that you look at, and you become very patient. There's a lot of things you look at and they'll be up high and you pretty much know that you can't get to them, and you just wait for the kids to get home or Kylie to get home and you do things. But yeah, look, it's definitely it's not the way I planned, but you just got to deal with it, don't you? You just got to get on with it. But
in the main, you said that you were going to come back from an international career, the likes of which many riders will never enjoy the same level of success. Semi-retire, have your fruit block, tinker with Speedway. You're still doing pretty much what you planned. Is that a fair comment? Pretty much, yeah, pretty much. Would I like it the other way? 100%. You know, it's pretty hard, it's pretty challenging, but you know, I've got on with life, and we still travel a bit, and we go on holiday. And to be honest, I've probably had some of my best holidays. You know, we went to Alice Springs in 2017 or 2019, I think. Went back to Fink. The kids wanted to go back and see where I got injured. I was pretty much against it, but we went up and we absolutely had a blast. You know, we had 3 or 4 days in Alice Springs. We went to Ayers Rock. Obviously didn't climb it. All the kids climbed it and whatnot. But yeah, look, we've just got on with life, and you know, I'm really lucky to have the kids and Kylie and everybody that helps out a lot. But you know, through the day I can pretty much come in here, do me thing, do me bike, get on the lathe. You know, pretty much do everything that I used to do, which is exactly what you're saying. And yeah, a lot of things, a few things, you just got to have patience. You just got to, you know, think, oh, well, I'll do that tomorrow when I can have get a hand to fit it up and whatnot. But, you know, in general, we just get on with it. You said when it first happened, you'd lay back and think about, we have to deal with the cards that we're dealt. And that's a credit to you. And everyone can see right now watching this, you're still the same Leigh Adams. You're pumped, you're busy, a lot going on. Do you still have the occasional bad day? Yeah, winter's a killer. I really, you know, when it's cold, my legs go numb and I can feel them. I've kind of got, I've got touch feeling, so I can feel my legs. How long ago did that come back? Yeah, when I first, it was weird. When I first got injured, I was laying in bed and the doctors come around. This was probably 2 or 3 weeks or something, and I had a patch on top of my leg and it was tingly, and I said to him, oh, I can feel a bit of tingling going on. He's like, oh, that's awesome, you know. And at the time you're thinking the guy's getting excited about nothing. I had a little bit of movement in my left toe, and they were all excited about it. But yeah, that's what it is. It's basically, it's the normal deal. Your vertebrae goes in, touches your spinal cord. You know, if you can imagine your spinal cord's like a mass of wires, it's what wires you damage. I was lucky, I was incomplete, so there's 2 classes, incomplete and complete. If you're complete, your vertebrae goes through and breaks them. Mine didn't. Mine went in and you know, did a bit of damage. And of course, where I was pretty much right in the middle of Australia, so they had to get me out of the middle of Australia down to Adelaide and you know, try and stabilise me as good as you can. But you can imagine that vertebrae in there doing the damage. So but yeah, look, I got touch feeling. I got to be careful with hot and cold. I can't feel hot and cold, so when you're in the shower you just got to check all the time. But yeah, you just, as I say, you just get on with it. You really do. You just gotta you know, the life doesn't stop. You just got to get on and do your thing and whatnot. I got a car set up and I'm independent. I can get in and drive myself and go to town and whatnot. So yeah, it's not all so bad, but would I change it? Yes, I would. Sure. What's the future look like through your eyes? What objectives have you got? Oh, to be honest, I'm in cruise mode now, basically. Just run my farm, watch my kids do their thing, and you know, try and get them set up and whatnot. They're pretty much at the age now where they're independent. Declan's living in Sydney, but yeah, just cruise.
Still got the junior speedway, still doing a few bikes, but it's really quietened off. It's really steady, and we just Australian Speedway. It needs an injection, big time.
I've heard you say that before, and I guess in some ways that's why we're here. I came to you in early 1994, and we were talking about the state of Speedway in Australia, and you said to me, and I quote, "What the sport needs is a really big series." I guess the rest is history. The International Speedway Masters was born. All started on the 1st of January 1995. Can you believe that? It's almost 30 years.
Yeah.
And there's a reimagined event happening at Gilman on December 27, 28, called the International Speedway Masters, albeit only over 2 nights and incorporating sidecars, so it's a bit different. The second night will feature the Leigh Adams Medal. How do you feel about that? Is that because when I called you about it, you were, "Oh, mate, I need to think about it." You're at peace with the fact now that you've actually done a bit in the sport and you deserve it?
Yeah, to be honest, you don't really look back. You kind of look. It was great. The series was absolutely fantastic. But yeah, when you rang me, I was like, man, I'm just a busted up speedo rider, and kind of, there's a lot of other kids around now and whatnot that are setting the world alight in the GPs and whatnot. Concentrate on them. But yeah, look, don't get me wrong, it's fantastic. It's prestige. It's an honour to have a meeting run under your name. But yeah, I don't know. You don't really. You just sort of think, oh, well, no one's reflected on my career, or look towards the future, basically. But yeah, it's cool. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
And the Masters series, I've said many times, it was kind of before its time, really. So what you did was pretty much run a Grand Prix series before the Grand Prix series was even thought about. And it was just the best time. It was great times. We travelled, right through Australia. The places we went to were just fantastic, right up to Townsville, to Perth, to Bunbury. Yeah, it was just great days, wasn't it? And really it kind of fell just at the right time, because the Grand Prix series wasn't invented and riders weren't so busy then. So yeah, the internationals, they wanted to, as soon as they got wind of it, that it was happening and it was a great event, they wanted to come over and do it, which now all these riders, they're all just too busy, and they want to shut down for summer and not ride and just rest.
It's good you allude to this, because if I'm being honest, if I go anywhere in Australia, the most common question I get, when are you going to do the series again? And I explain to them why it can't happen.
Yeah.
And they look at me like I've got 4 heads, which is understandable, because the one head I've got is as wide as 4 heads, I guess.
Yeah.
But on a serious note, you just nailed it. The times have changed. The World Championship's a lot bigger. Poland's a lot bigger. The frequency of meetings the top guys do abroad is unbelievable. And on the downside here in Australia, the venues are just not there anymore. No Ekka, no Newcastle
exactly.
Motordrome, Gosford's closed, Claremont's gone.
And more so, the sprint car tracks have become pure sprint car tracks.
Yeah.
There's more clay involved and all that, and we just can't go to those venues. But yeah, I don't know. The Master Series fell at the right time. It was great. It kind of makes me laugh a little bit, Tappy. All these kids come back, JMO and all these guys come back, and I'll sit down and have a chat and say, oh, how was your year? Oh, busy. I say, oh, how many meetings? Oh, we did 65 or something. Well, I was doing 110. That was my record, 110 meetings. So it kind of makes me laugh. The travel, the last couple of years, the travel has got more difficult to go to Sweden and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I take that on board. But really, they're not busy. They're probably, Poland, as you say, has become a juggernaut. It's more professional. You got to turn up the day before and do your training and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I can take that on board. But yeah, look, the series, great times. I'd say, you know, without a doubt, every rider that was in it just had a ball. It was like a travelling circus, wasn't it? You know, and off we went to do it every year. Was just awesome.
You talked about the work you've done on junior bikes, and obviously here in Mildura, Olympic Park Speedway has been pivotal in assisting with the development of a number of the best riders Australia has ever produced. Everyone watching knows that. Do you feel a sense of pride and I guess a brotherhood that you're from the region that has created what it has done? And in your era alone, we can rattle off 5 or 6 guys here that
totally
were absolutely world class. Is that a bit special to you that you were a part of an era that featured so many prodigal and local sons?
Yeah, look, it's Mildura's, you know, it's definitely the place for not so much now, but before, definitely we produced that many good riders. Jason, Phil, it all come from Phil basically. So Phil was a stepping stone. He went to England and set his career up and become a professional speedo rider, and all us kids were coming through from the juniors and really used to look at him and think, yeah, that's where we want to go. That's where we want to, you know, that's your pinnacle to go to England basically. It was great. More so what I really liked doing was coming back to Australia and riding in Australia. And what that did, Tappy, was it wasn't just for myself and to race in front of my family. What it did was, I think, is gave back to the guy, the official, or the guy on the water car, the guy that did the track, to suddenly have an international come back and ride at his track. You know, that was kind of, you know, a real feather in the cap for them, and they used to really love it. I know in Mildura, Charlie, the grader driver, he used to dig it and come over and be asking me what's going on, you know, how's the track, all this. So I kind of enjoyed that, coming back, and yeah, it probably wore me out. It ground me down doing all the meetings like what I just spoke about. 108 was my record. So, but it was more so giving back to Australian Speedway, and you know, it was like the lady that signed you on at the pit gate. If she suddenly had an international meeting like yours, and it was a real feather in the cap for them. So, and that's what I kind of really enjoyed, was doing that. But yeah, getting back, Crumpy was the man that paved the way for Australia Speedway.
Yeah, a bit like in road racing parlance, Wayne Gardner created the pathway to success for so many riders.
Yep.
So you took great pride in the fact you gave back to the sport that gave you the career that you had.
100%, yeah, definitely. And then you know, to get back involved with Junior Speedway, and I used to come back every year and see the Junior Speedway, and all these kids were running on the bikes that I was riding on. They were just, you know, resurrected and tarted up a little bit, and they were pretty all old and decrepit. So I kind of, and Declan was getting involved, and that's where I knew that's where it starts from. It starts from Pee-wees to Junior Speedway, and then they go on from there. So I wanted to try and give it a bit of an injection, and yeah, it worked, but we need another one.
Yeah. So what you're alluding to put it in layman's terms for people that might not understand exactly where you're going, there was a quantum leap between a 125 junior bike onto a 500, and you and other people obviously believed that there needed to be a stepping stone there that made the transition to a 500 a bit easier, hence the 250s. So that's where you're going with this, right?
Well, yeah, the 350 came in first, and then the 250, and that's a great asset to have that for the young kids to step into. It was a big step, but it probably wasn't so bad back in my day, because we were on upright bikes, and when we went in, the bikes weren't as fast. Now they're just rapid, and they're missiles. They really are. They're so quick. I haven't ridden one of these new style bikes, the new baby offset and all that sort of stuff. From what I gather and what I speak to people, they're just screamers, and you know, a lot more difficult. And you can see the speed of everything. It just happens so quick, you know. Look, the 125 is where it all begins. 250 is great. That's another little chink to get into, and they're obviously running the World Championships and all that now, so that's great. But yeah, look, to be honest, I still enjoy watching the GPs, and to watch Marshall is just insane, honestly. As a speedo rider, to watch what he's doing is just incredible. He's like the real deal.
You made a comment when I asked you the question about the role Mildura, the region, has played in developing world-class riders. You more or less said that it's not like that now, alluding to the fact there were very few juniors. What's going on? Is that why you're saying it needs an injection?
Yeah, look, they are trying, and the junior club here is really trying. They've got a club bike and try and run, come and try days and all that sort of stuff. But I don't know, I think it's more so the kids have got so much more to do. They've got their iPads and all that sort of stuff, which really screws everything, doesn't it, And, there's so much more for the kids to do. And Speedway's pretty hard work. The bikes are pretty, maintenance-wise, they're pretty full-on. So a dirt bike, a dad can go and buy a dirt bike and do the air filter every time he rides, and off he goes. So, Speedway's difficult, but one thing I will say is, it's set up a career for many, many people, and, it made my life, and I wouldn't change it for the world. And even now, these kids in junior Speedway, we're not producing a lot of riders, but what we produce is very good. That's what I see. And it paves the way. They can just go on and be GP riders and have a great career.
So, Leigh, hypothetically, I'm a 17-year-old and I've made my way through the ranks in Australia and I aspire for an international career. How hard is it going to be for me now versus your era? Is it easier now or harder to establish yourself?
I would say it's harder, Tappy, because as I say, the bikes are going quicker. They're a lot more volatile to ride. From what I see, from what I hear, I've not ridden one of these new engines, the baby offsets and all that. But yeah, I would say it's probably a little bit more difficult, especially a 17-year-old just stepping onto one. They're pretty lethal, unless you've come through the junior Speedway, junior 125, 250, and then you step onto a 500. It's a tough gig. There wouldn't be too many people do it, and Poland, they got the 125s or they got the 190s, whatever they are now, but in Poland they tend to go just 250s, and then, mate, I can remember back in my day in Lesno, the Pavlicki boys, there was no 125s, no 250s. I just remember a mechanic coming and saying, "Oh, come and look at these two kids," and they were like 14-year-olds just wrapping a 500 on. So that's kind of where it all comes from in Poland, and they just keep producing good riders. But getting back to your answer, to your question, it'd be harder now, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, in reality, and this comment won't go down well with people in the UK watching, but England is not the hotbed of world racing. It was in the era you went over. So it's got to be tougher for young blokes to find a club and to have a financially viable deal.
Yeah, it's pretty horrible in England what's happening. Clubs are closing down, like famous clubs, Swindon, Wolverhampton, all these juggernaut clubs, and they just keep closing year by year. So, it's getting tough. The Premier League, I don't know what it's called now. I think I don't even know.
It's changed.
It's Premier and Championship.
Yeah.
It's a tough gig. It really is a tough. Unless you've come from the 125 ranks, 250, 500, just to step straight in and get a club that's going to take you on. And obviously Poland, they just keep producing good riders. So it's definitely harder.
Poland has come up a fair bit in this conversation already, which was inevitable. You used the word juggernaut. It is a gargantuan of World Speedway. Has it, in some respects, been detrimental to the sport elsewhere?
I would say. A few years back, they brought in a rule that if you raced in the top league in Poland, you couldn't race in England, which sucks. At the end of the day, everyone's got to earn a living out of it. So, again, getting back, I chased as many meetings as I could because I wanted to make a living and kick back and retire. So for those guys to come and say you can't race in England or Poland, you can only do one other league if you race in Poland, I think it's changed now. There's been a few riders come over and go back into England, which is great. We've got Emil and a few others in there now, so that's really cool. But Poland, you can't begrudge what they've done. They've had television. It's their second biggest sport in the country. They've grabbed it by the horns and pretty much made it like AFL. They run television Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I think, a match every night on telly. So
the biggest thing they've done right is venues, the pure calibre, or stadiums that offer capacity for a lot of people, most of whom are undercover.
Yeah, my stadium, Lesno, I don't know, it was like 15, 16,000 people or something like that. So, and we used to get that at league matches. We used to, half fill or maybe more, 3/4 fill. So they already had the stadiums. They've invested and made the stadiums bigger, Wrocław, and obviously they got the Warsaw one. But there's still other great stadiums, Bydgoszcz and all these ones that are still in the second division that aren't up. So, you're probably right. They had the stadiums. They've grabbed it by the horns, the television, they've made it more professional. Everybody's in race suits, bikes, everything, mechanics and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. So, they've done it right, and if you're in there, you're earning good money. All the boys are on pretty good money, so I wouldn't begrudge what they've done. I think what they did a while back in restricting riders, that sucked. Rider's got to earn a living. That's his main deal. And when you walk away, that's it. Your career's finished and you're done and dusted. So
it has undoubtedly created a false economy, though. You just nailed it again. The top guys there earn outstanding money.
Yep.
And they have an expectation when an Australian promoter rings them up, they're going to earn the same. They have an expectation that if they're required in England, that they want comparative money, and it just is never going to happen.
No.
And that's a real shame.
Yeah, it is. It is. And don't get me wrong, I'd love to see him out here and, bring Smarshlick out now and do some meetings and whatnot, But there's not just Smarshlick, there's a load of others. And, as I say, it's a juggernaut. They just keep producing riders and good riders.
Yeah.
So it's a tough gig to try and compete with them, definitely.
As a rider in the upper echelon, as you were for so long, did you prefer league racing / teams racing or individual racing? I personally find teams racing nowhere near as good to watch as an open meeting.
Look, a Grand Prix was a Grand Prix. It was prestige. It was, you'd go there and do your Friday practice, Saturday, and it's a 2-day show. It's all sort of razzmatazz. But yeah, I enjoyed me team racing. It was always good to try and have a teammate and work out. Well, you're looking for a 5-1. A lot of the time, especially in Poland, you were with the calibre, riding with the calibre rider on your level, so you could try and work things out before you went out. In England, it was tend to be three heat leaders, and the rest were a lot lower, so it was a lot harder. But that's a tough question. I don't know, Tappy. I enjoyed both. Obviously, as you say, your teams racing was your bread and butter. So
let's flip it around then. There's been some clubs and individual promoters in Australia over, let's say, a period of 40 years, although not recently, that have had a crack at some form of teams racing. It's been a dismal failure because I don't think that the typical Australian can really relate to it as they can abroad. Had Australia been able to create a vibrant league or teams racing scenario nationally, would the sport be in better nick now?
I think it's really just tradition. We've always just had individual racing right back from Billy Sanders, Crumpy, all that sort of stuff. And to try and introduce teams racing was always going to be difficult with the logistics of Australia. It's such a big place. If you had if you had a team in Perth and wanted to come over and race Mildura, it was always going to be tough. So I think that's why it's always just stuck with the individual stuff, and it's how people are brought up, isn't it? And what they know, basically. Which is not a bad thing. I don't think it's, as you say, many people have tried it and it's always failed miserably. And it probably will even now. The logistics are probably your biggest killer.
Yeah, sure. And how it would be funded.
Yeah.
It is a very big continent, as you say.
Yeah.
We talked about Phil Crump and the role he played in aspiring young people to want to be professional speedway riders, and he was undoubtedly the demigod, particularly in Mildura.
Yep.
And like you, he always came home and raced at every event at Mildura, and he'd race at the Ekka on a Saturday night, drive right through the night to race at Mildura Sunday night, and he just kept putting in. So clearly he was someone that you looked up to as a young guy. When you got to England and started to create a career as a professional, am I incorrect in saying that Hans Nielsen was your absolute idol?
He was my idol, definitely. To be honest, getting back to where it stemmed from, it was probably Streety, because Streety had gone over and set a career up and then saw what Crumpy could do on a speedo bike.
Yeah, he was the godfather.
Yeah, and then pretty much grabbed him under his wing and said, right, you come with me, we're going to go over and make a career. And then, Crumpy pretty much paved the way for everyone else. That's what we all wanted to do, especially in Mildura. Everybody just wanted to, get good enough to go to England to make a living out of racing motorbikes. And let's face it, when you make a living out of something that's your hobby, every day is a great day.
That's a bonus.
It's a great day. So, probably Streety was the one that paved the way. But Crumpy was just a legend, and Hans was the world champion when I first went over. So, being world champion, I'd always look at him and think, right, that's what I got to inspire. He could start, he could ride grippy tracks, he could do a number of things, and look so smooth and majestic on a bike. So, to be honest, I had a guy come here the other day. He's from Denmark, and Erik Gundersen got injured my first year in '89. So Erik was kind of unique. He was kind of I only saw him ride once, but and he was probably the bullet, really, because he wasn't such a good starter. He could come from the back. He was the more package. Hans was just a machine. He could just make starts and go and win world championships. So really, getting back to your question, Hans was world champion, and he sort of, he didn't take me under his wing, but he was. There was a sponsor that used to sponsor Hans, and I went up and had lunch with him, and he sort of said, right, you're in the Premier League, you got to get to the Elite League, you got to, take everything on, basically, and that's what I did.
The era you rode in, particularly when you were at your zenith, World Championship contender, and everyone knows the career you had. I mean, here in Australia, record-breaking 10 national titles, multiple under-21 titles, multiple Victorian titles, 3 times champion of the Master Series, and of course abroad, Commonwealth title victory, under-21 World Championship victory, 3 World Cup victories. I think in the Grand Prix you made over 100 starts, and I think you had 20 finals and 8 or 9 wins, and the rest, I could just go on and on, couldn't I? 4 times winner of the Golden Helmet. Mm-hmm. I'm delving right into the memory bank here. Stop me if I'm wrong.
You are.
The era you rode in, I look back as a fan and think, my God, how lucky was I to see that and to play a small part in it by virtue of running a national series that featured the very best riders in the world of the day. There was an era before that, which was the Olsen, Major, Crump, Bolger, Collins, and so that was a terrific era. Yep. Zenon Plek, Anders Mucinek, and so it goes on. But the era that you formed a major part of was unbelievable. I'm not sure the sport will ever see it again. Australia had 4 or 5 absolute guns, yourself included. Mm-hmm. Hans Nielsen, Sam Malenko, Wiggy was around. Just keep going on forever. the quality. The Danes were red hot. The Americans were strong. You know, like,
yeah.
Wow.
You know
You
what?
were lucky to be a part of that.
I was, and everyone sort of looks at it. Rickardsson.
Yeah.
Rickardson's the man, the king.
Sure.
The king.
I agree.
Everyone looks at him and goes, Ivan and him won 6 world championships. Ivan was world long track champion. Yeah. Ivan's better. There's no doubt Rickardsson was the king.
I agree, totally.
Because the era that he did it in, there was Thomas Gollop, Jason Crump. The list just keeps going on and on. And my theory there is back in Ivan's day, it was when you had to qualify for a one-off world championship, and you had a lot of Eastern Europeans would get 6 spots in the world championships. So you'd have the Poles, the Russians and all that didn't have the equipment.
They were not strong.
They didn't have the equipment. They were communists back then. Yep. So they didn't have the equipment that Ivan and all those guys did. Don't get me wrong, you still got to go and beat your competition, but but what Tony did in his day, the Poles, in our day, the Poles had better equipment than us because the money had come in. Yeah. Communists, the communists had dropped, and suddenly the money was just, they were getting better engines, they were getting the German tuners, they had better equipment than us. So
the Danes, to an extent, were government supported.
Yep.
Danish Speedway Federation derives significant grants from the federal government.
Yeah. More so just the Poles, I think. They just, the Gollops, the Protaseviches and all those guys, they could just go and buy what they want and have the best engines and whatnot. And for Tony to do his 6 in that era, there's no doubt he's the king. And, I feel privileged to having raced with him, raced against him and raced with him in Sweden and England and travelled and all that. And, the guy was just next level, honestly. Yeah,
he did take the sport to another level.
Yep.
Not only with his on-track exploits, his presentation, his motorhomes, his corporate hospitality, entertaining clients, the profile he has in his native Sweden to this day.
Yep.
He's on Dancing with the Stars, and he's won the most popular person in Sweden, awarded a number of times. It's extraordinary, really.
He's a rock star, isn't he? And I when I first went to Masana, which was his home club, where he was born and bred, and basically whatnot. So they'd got into the elite league and then run one season. Yeah. And I think they finished 4th or something like that. It was a pretty good effort. So that was the first time Tony had actually ridden for that club since he'd started in his early career. And then he got on to me and said, look, you got to come. It's going to be big. It's going to be good. It's going to be this and whatnot. Yeah. So I signed up for the club, and I did an interview with the guy that used to do the commentary. And he goes, oh, what was that? That was great days, great times. And I said, mate, we were just riding the wave, basically, because Tony had become this pop star of Sweden, and every place we went to, it was just packed. They just wanted to see him. He was a rock star, and as you say, he had the motorhome and all the bells and whistles. Yeah. But I
was over there in 1995, sorry to interrupt, and the Swedish Grand Prix was conducted at Linköping. Mm-hmm. Not the greatest track in the world, to be honest, and it was pretty rough that day. And I got in Tony's motorhome with him and headed back to his home at Avesta. And on the way, we went through a number of what I'll call country towns. Yep. And people were running out of shops, waving and screaming. Yeah. It was like I was in the company of Michael Jackson.
Yeah, no, he was next level. And those next 2 years, that year that I went there, the first year I went to Masana, which was Avesta, that was the name of the club. We won the league, and mate, we broke records. Every track we went to, we broke records. People just wanted to see the guy. He was next level, and you know him. He was just a great guy. He was professional when he needed to be professional.
You had to have a good time.
He loved to party, loved to drink. We had motorhomes. we both had motorhomes, and we used to enjoy just having a beer and whatnot. So, yeah, it was great times, and obviously the Grand Prix was just getting momentum, and it was hitting big stadiums and Cardiff and all that sort of stuff. So, great era.
Well, you've been in this chat waxing lyrical about Tony Ricardson, and I'm on board with that. I mean, I would have to say he's the best rider I've seen in my time. And you've referred to him as the king. What has Smarsley got to do for him to surpass Ricardson in your mind as being the king?
Well, beat 6, which is pretty much on the cards. He's 5 now, is he? 4, 5? Can't remember.
5, I think.
5. I think he's 5, and the way I look at it,
3 in a row.
Yeah, he is the package. Honestly, he's probably not the razzmatazz of Ricardson. Ricardson was the rock star, as you say, the motorhomes and all that sort of stuff. Those days are probably gone. They all just tend to have their Sprinter vans, and it looks good. It's all professional. I actually love what Tony's brought into the Grand Prix with the pit areas and the rostrum and all that. He's done a wonderful job, I think, and I still really enjoy watching the Grand Prix.
We haven't talked much about the Aussies, which this country in its own right provided a multitude of world-class guys in the era we're referring to. Your era. What Crump achieved was extraordinary. His consistency over 10 years being in the top 3, unbelievable.
Incredible.
Yeah, your thoughts on him?
Oh, look, Jason, he was a machine, basically. He, how many years did he finish on the rostrum?
Well, 10 years in a row.
Was it? It was with the top 3, yeah. That's just incredible, honestly. Definitely the best.
Ricardson's era.
Yeah, totally. Definitely the best Australian that's come out, that's come from Mildura. He was from Mildura. He started from Mildura. He won't class that. He thinks he was a Mexican in Brisbane, but it all started from Mildura. Great rider. Again, hard but fair. When I say hard, he'd push you and run you to the boards, but wouldn't stick you through. So. Not like somebody else.
Right. You want to go there? Or?
Well, yeah, we can do. To be honest, in 207, Nicky was, that was the guy that I had to race to be world champion, and I felt as though he stepped over the mark many times. And I've spoken to a few riders, Mark Loram and a few others, and they all said at one stage we were kind of scared of him. You just didn't know. He was a loose cannon. You didn't know what you were going to get. So Nicky would, he wouldn't be shy to stick you in the boards.
Gold went through a period of his career like that too.
Yeah, he was a little bit brutal and do some wacky stuff. But a good rider, great rider. Nicky, I think he's just sheer determination, and riding a bike, I can look at Nicky and his style and everything. It wasn't fluent, but I think everything else added up, and his mental strength, and he wasn't shy to be injured or whatnot. So don't get me wrong, he deserved what he got, 3 world championships or something.
Sure. Some of the other Aussies, Todd Wiltshire, Ryan Sullivan, Jason Lyons. We've talked about Crumpy, obviously, and so many others. The Aussie title was damn hard to win.
It was.
Even qualifying for it.
Yeah. We
had great depth in the sport. You had your Troy Batchelors and guys like that. If the event was at the Equerry, it was going to be hard.
Yeah.
And so on. Is there anyone that you would like to talk about that maybe doesn't get the credit he deserves? I think of someone like Craig Boyce when I asked that question, who was
3rd in the world.
Tough guy for a long time.
And 3rd.
Led the world final.
Yeah.
Trapped at Voyance.
I think Boise probably puts himself down. I talked to him and he's like, I was never on your level running, top of the averages and all that sort of stuff in England, but he was always there or thereabouts, and 3rd in the world, and won the Master Series twice.
96 he won it.
Yeah.
He was the first Aussie to win it.
Yeah.
And was an absolute animal.
Yep. Totally.
And also won the Australian Championship the same season at Broadmeadow, Newcastle Showground. But he's put a lot back in too.
Massive.
The captain of Australia, or the coach.
Yep.
And obviously his Speedway experience and junior development and coaching has been fantastic.
Unbelievable.
He's unique character.
Yeah.
There's only one Boise, we know that. And I say that with affection.
Yep.
But gee, he was tough on his day.
Yeah, no, he was a really hard competitor, and that world final in Voyens, he was there. He was in a runoff with Hans Nielsen and Tony Ricardson to win the world championship. And ran third. So. And a rock solid rider in Australia, always fast and whatnot. Todd was a really good rider. Obviously, we all know his trapping skills. He was a starter from probably the best starter that I've ever seen. Yeah, he could just pull starts, and again, you kind of overlook him, but did he run second? I think he ran second in the world in
1990
in Bradford. Yeah, in Bradford.
He was third, but he was elevated.
That's it. Yeah, exactly. So, and that was when.
It's only his second year in England.
Yeah. We were young. It was only my first year in England then, I think, or first.
Second in the world pairs. Not long after that.
That next year.
Yeah.
That next year. Yeah. So, really good rider. Sullivan again.
How much did it cost Todd? Being badly hurt at North Arm, it's been well documented. It gave the sport away for 5 years. What he actually achieved when he went back was extraordinary.
Yeah.
Laydowns had come in. He didn't even own a helmet.
No.
When he went back.
No. It was like starting
How
again.
much did that break impede his career? Some would argue he still had a great career.
Yeah, look, it would have knocked him around. It was a big injury, and that would have definitely played on his mind. To be honest, that when he got injured was North Arm, my first Australian championship that I won. And to be honest, I was on a mission that year. I linked up with Otto Weiss and had the best engines, and man, there was no one going to beat me, Tappy. I'm not being, confident, but I had the package, and I'd come second or third in the Australian titles, and that year I was just on a mission to win it, and I knew I had the engines. My engines were just insane. So back then, if you had a German tuner, that was like unheard of. So managed to link up with Otto, and then won that Aussie championship, and then went on to Brisbane, and then won my third in a row in Mildura. So
won the World Under-21 title in between.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. So, that was great times. To be honest, probably my best meeting ever would be that North Arm meeting. It sounds stupid.
Really?
Yeah. Look, Grand Prix were great, and they were great to win, but that sort of set my career up. To win that Aussie championship, you just sort of. I'd run second, ran third or whatever, and then I just set out that year, and that's it. And to get in a zone where you're going to win whatever, and that's pretty much where it all started from, was that Aussie championship.
Let's go somewhere now that people watching might not expect. I know that Tony Ricardson was one of the first guys at Speedway to employ the services of a sports psychologist. As you know, I've had involvement in a lot of other sports at administration level and media level.
Yep.
And it's commonplace in tennis and other elite sports, but not so much Speedway. Did you ever utilise a sports psychologist?
Yes. Great story. Used to travel with Tony, be on the plane, go to Sweden, whatnot. And I think I ran 3 years and I was fourth in the world. And he was just talking to me on the plane. He goes, "What are you doing?" He says, "You're a better rider than being fourth." And mind you, I was racing Tony for the world championship.
Yeah,
we were going together. And he goes, "You're way better than that, right? You're way better rider." He said, you need to go and see somebody. You need to see a sports psychologist." And I'm looking at him like, what? I knew he was linked up with somebody in Sweden helping him out and whatnot. So I come back and said to Kylie, and she said, "Yeah, definitely, we got to do it." So she sort of set me up, and I went with a couple, and you got to kind of link up with somebody that's on your wavelength. And I sort of didn't gel with these first two. Third one, we gelled, and then off we went. And I did probably 2 or 3 years with him and got him involved with Swindon Speedway and all that sort of stuff. Next level. Just basically, a sports psychologist will get you to park the bad and the negatives and think about the positives. So you get your negatives and all that, and you shove them over your shoulder, and all you do is you think positive. He wouldn't let me in an interview say, try. You know, if I was in an interview and said, I will probably try to, win the next one, he always said try was nowhere. That was like you were just
really?
Nowhere.
Really?
You had to, everything you said, and
I will.
Yep, I will win the next one, and if you had a bad race, I will park that race and think about the next one. All this sort of stuff, and it's funny. Don't get me. Did it work? Oh yeah, it was fantastic. In 2007 was my first year with this guy, and I used to go down at the start of the year and spend a day with him, and then I'd have a top-up mid-season, and then towards the end, I actually wanted him to come on tour and do the GPs with me, and he was pretty busy.
Roger Federer, were you?
Well, he was pretty busy, and he goes, I haven't got the time, but we can put things in place for me to be there, but not be there. So I had to do reports every Grand Prix and email him to him, and how I felt and inner feelings and all that sort of stuff.
Be careful not to use the word try.
Try, don't use try. He'd be right up me, and he'd be on the phone straight away. So, definitely elevated my career. That definitely took me to a chance of winning the World Championship.
How much did it change you as a person, and did you learn things that have stood you in good stead up to now?
Well, it's funny. I actually can sit back and watch the Grand Prix even now, and I can listen to interviews at the GP, and I know exactly who's getting dealt with sports.
Getting the head dealt with.
Getting sorted with sports psychologists. Ty Wolfenden was a good one. He got excluded in a race, and they shoved a microphone under him, and they expected a big rampage, and he's just like, it is what it is. I don't agree with the decision. I've got to park it and get on with the next race. And you just know who's dealing with them and whatnot. And I'd recommend it to any sportsman. I know now I really look out for it. Scott McLaughlin got linked up with the guy, or a lady. It's a lady from Richmond Football Club, and took him to another level. And pretty much all the guys at the peak would be dealing with somebody, definitely.
I believe there were some high-profile football people that heard you speak at a Hall of Fame dinner, and subsequently your phone didn't stop ringing, seeking your services as a motivator for athletes.
Yeah.
Is it true?
Yeah, it is. It was the local Sportsman of the Year award, and I won the first one when they first brought it in. And I think it was 25 years or something like that. And they got me back, and I did a little bit of public speaking, and Kylie had set up, a film of my career, and you'd sort of run through, and when you got that, you can go through and say, right, this was then, this is my early career, blah, 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 blah. And I got to the year 2007 and basically said, this is when I linked up with a sports psychologist, took everything to the next level. So then that was all over and done with and finished, and I don't particularly like public speaking. I don't feel that comfortable, but and then it was probably a day later I got a phone call from two football clubs, the local football clubs. And their president was at the sportsman dinner, and he goes, "Oh man, that was the most awesome speech that I've heard, and I want you to join me club and do motivational talking." And I was like, "Man, that's not me. That's I'm a young kid from Irimple, So didn't take it on, and I really I don't know whether I could help that way. I could probably help with a lot of different things in, the mind, the way the mind works and whatnot, but it's not my forte.
Talking about psychology, motivation, how to deal with adversity, you've alluded to your extraordinary wife, Kylie, a number of times. She would argue she was, in fact, really your psychologist throughout your entire career. What a rock.
Yes, I was just about to say, she's my rock, So when I first come up with this thing, when Tony mentioned it, she was just got it on board and rang around and, right, you got to go and see this guy, and we got some local ones to start with and didn't link up, and then, she just kept going and linked up with saw this guy on the internet, and he was dealing with Luton football or something, and he was down in Stansted, and then off I went, and she, mate, to be honest, I had the easy time just racing speedo bikes. You jump on a plane, it was pretty hard work, you'd have early mornings, but you'd go and do something that you love doing. So every day is a great day, isn't it? So, she had to be at home and look after kids. And
she was your manager.
Yeah.
I spent some time with you guys in your home in England, and she was as busy as you.
Yeah.
Organising your flights and your mechanics and your schedules and your hotel bookings and spare parts, components. She was a massive part of your success.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. As you say, she was my rock. I kind of like a machine, just wake up, go and do my job and, do my thing, score points and come home. But, she probably had the tough job. The logistics were just an absolute killer, to try and, at one stage there...
108 meetings, like you pointed out.
Yeah, but also 3 countries, and we had 3 mechanics, 3 vans or 4 vans or, motorhomes, vans and bikes. And I think at one time I was running 9 bikes or something like that, maybe more, which now you look back and everything from Poland, that equipment there doubles up and goes and does Sweden and does the Grand Prix, which makes sense. So less bikes, to try and run all those bikes and keep on top of them was a really tough gig, and as you say, logistics and all that sort of stuff, madness.
I want to talk about another rider that was pivotal during your era and beyond. That's Greg Hancock. For what he was doing at his age, were you blown away?
Yeah, I was. I think to be competing against the younger generation at 40 and winning world championships is pretty unbelievable in any sport. Really, like you look at Aussie rules, they're done and dusted by 28, they're finished. So, for what he was doing and competing against the younger generation and beating them, incredible. It really is. And, he's still putting in now. He's still doing training schools and all sorts, and I think he's actually coaching some Polish riders and whatnot, and Polish clubs and all that sort of stuff. So
he's working with Wozniak.
Yeah, and I think I don't know whether he's still involved with Wroclaw. That was his club in Poland. He was still involved there a little bit. So, that's incredible. And then, again, feather in our cap, we had him over here doing the International Master Series. So, it was pretty cool.
There was a big gap in between his world titles, wasn't there? I think 97 was his first one.
Yep.
Billy won it in, 96?
Yep.
Sam won it in 93. So the Americans were very strong during that period. Then there was a big gap.
Yeah, he kind of, I don't know. He sort of disappeared. He was still in the Grand Prix and still competing. But I think, don't quote me on it, but I think he kind of linked up and he was with Peter Johns. And that's when Johnsy was the man. He was, winning with Chris, and then I think he got involved with Greg, and then Greg won, and then Ty won, and I think he probably won 5 or 6 Grand Prix in a row, world championships. So yeah, he was, don't get me wrong, fantastic rider, and do what he was doing and competing against the younger generation and beating them, showing them the way. Pretty awesome.
Let's talk about Chris Holder. He was like the bridge, if you like, the Crump Adams era and all the other great riders. Along comes Chris, and he cleaned up for a period of time, 5 Australian championships and obviously the world title in 2012. And then sustained some terrible injuries. Like, he really has been to hell and back.
Yep.
Had a fabulous season this year in league average terms. According to those that I speak to, the best season he's had in a long time.
Yep, definitely. Look, he had, you know, don't get me wrong, like, just talking about the whole family, a great family. I don't think I've ever seen a parent so grounded as Mick.
Unbelievable.
You know, he
never stops helping the kids.
Nope. Still helping them now, doing the Speedway experience, all that sort of stuff. Incredible. I just can't speak highly enough for what he's done with all these kids, and how grounded they were. You know, even when Chris was world champion, it didn't mean anything to Mick. You're still, you know, Chris is just a great rider, great style. We talk about Smartlick and styles and whatnot. He just had a fluent style and did everything correct. So, yeah, look, it's a real shame. Injuries just cost him, and then his best mate ends up in a wheelchair. It's not gonna help, you know. So, I think just a combination of all those things, all those factors, but just his injury alone that he got straight after his world championship sort of set him back many years. And it's great that he's still there and still competing and can still run with the best, really. He's probably, you know, I'd like to see him in the World Cup. I think he could do some damage, really. You know, he's got the experience, but and as you say, this year I was watching his scores in Poland and England. He rode really good. Yeah,
clearly one of the boys to beat in the Leigh Adams medal, I dare say.
Yep. Him and his brother.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know how Mick does it. You know, I've seen them come in and they'll have a scuffle up on the track, and you know, they'll come in and they'll be into each other, and Mick will just walk over and just say, "Listen, just cool it," you know. And pretty incredible. Great family. You would have dealt with them many times, and obviously what Jack's doing. Is really, really good, and talking to Jack, he thinks he can run it to Smartlick and give him a run, just give him a good run. I think this year probably engines, you know, they just didn't work out right. He got sort of the mid-season and just tapered off.
Bad wrist injury in the World Team Cup too.
Yep, but I think give him a smooth run and good engines and everything.
Yep.
He's certainly confident enough, and you talk to him and he's pretty sure he could give Smartlick a run.
Let's talk about some of the other current Aussies. People watching would be really interested in your thoughts. So I'll mention the names and you say whatever you want to say. Jamin Lindsay?
Yeah, really great talent. Took the hard way, really. Like everybody sort of just goes in and does England, does Premier League, and then goes to the Elite League, and then goes to Poland. I don't know, he couldn't get a work permit or something, and he come to me and said, "Listen, I want to go over," and he did the Polish route and went to Poland and did the hard yards there in the lesser league, and then off he went. So lives in Poland now. Still think, you know, he's definitely got time on his side, but needs to knock on the door of the GPs pretty soon. That's my feeling. In the next 2 years, I'd love to see him in the GPs.
Jason Doyle?
Look, Doyley, obviously world champion and all that, and a great rider, but I just felt as though this year some of the moves he was making was a little bit desperado, you know, and I kind of felt as though, I didn't like to say it, but felt as though he was going to get injured, you know, because he was just doing some crazy things and sticking his nose in where he shouldn't be, really. But and look, I hope he can come back. And shoulder's not great. Obviously surgery and the recovery time is getting shorter and shorter. but it's not ideal, and it plays on your mind. I had a shoulder that used to dislocate, so it's not good.
Brady Kurtz.
Probably the in-form rider in the world, I would say.
Australian.
Maybe, yeah, probably, definitely in the top three. I would put Smarshlick and Robert Lambert. The speed Robert Lambert had in those last probably 3 GPs.
Yeah, incredible.
Probably the quickest rider in the world. His engines were by far better than Smarshlick. Smarshlick's talent just got him through and won the world championship. But Kurtzy was right there. You know what he did in the World Team Cup. You know, that last ride, you know, he just did what he had to do, and everyone sort of was like, oh, why did he stick it straight up and try and pass Lambert and just wait? But that's just a Speedo rider. You're just going to go racing, aren't you? That's your job, basically. In form, I think, really looking forward to next year in the Grand Prix and what sort of damage he can do.
Okay, Max Frick.
Yeah, Max is sort of... he's gone a little bit stagnant. I really felt as though when he got in the Grand Prix, he was just going to keep building and building. I feel as though he's just a little bit stagnant. I hope he can sort of just get on a bit of momentum, and you know, he's won Grand Prix. He won a Grand Prix this year, so but he can win one and then be literally second last. So a little bit more consistency. Really fit guy, super talented on a bike, and has got the package, but yeah, probably consistency.
Sidecars. Obviously, they form an integral part of the event at Gilman, December 27, 28. Night one is a tribute to Darren Treloar with the Darren Treloar Cup, and obviously the solo's named after you on night two. He recently won his 12th Australian title. When I spoke to you on the phone, you used the term he's a freak show. He's that good. Like,
yeah, well,
I know you're a sidecar fan. How can you not be?
I'm a sidecar buff.
What about him?
Oh, yeah. Like, man, how old is he? 40?
56.
Is he? My God. Okay. And I hear he's like ripped and super fit, and you know, the younger generation must just sit back and think, what do I need to do? You know, because this guy just comes and blows them into the weeds. Yeah, just a machine, basically. The package, probably like Rickardson. He's got the bike, he's got the engines, he's got fitness. He's a very deep thought kind of guy. Yeah, I've seen him come here. He's washed his bikes here, and the guy's next level. So, yeah, it's pretty amazing. It really is. And you know what it burns, how much it burns out of your body just mentally. You know, I know how much it did in my 40 years or 21 years it was in England, but by the time I was 40 I was just burnt. I was done. So to think he's still winning Australian championships now is just, yeah, it's mind-blowing.
Yeah. Are you of the belief, like I am, that sidecars could have been something on a global scale had, I suppose, an entrepreneur had seen the vision and started them, you know, on a serious scale? There's no reason why sidecars couldn't have a platform globally comparable to solos.
Yeah, 100%. Especially the way the tracks are in Poland. You know, they're big, wide, pretty much fast. They're kind of, you know, perfect for sidecars. You know, they need a bit of. Well, I shouldn't say they need wings. You know, you see a great meeting at Mildura, which is a bull ring for sidecars, and it's pretty incredible. It's amazing. So, yeah, they can get around the small ones, but when you see them, the speed they got now with these, you know, cross-plane R1s and whatnot, it's next level. So, yeah, Poland was the place, and Sweden's really good, but obviously safety fences and all that come into it, and they weren't really up to it. They were built for solos, so.
Yeah, sure.
That's a restriction.
Mate, I'm going to ask you something now that's hard. One of the most common statements I've had over 30 years from people that know Leigh Adams is the best rider not to win the World Grand Prix Championship. You did everything, World 10 Cups, and we know what you've done. How do you respond to that?
Well, it doesn't burn me, so I'm really happy with what I achieved, and probably my only regret would be probably going too hard, too fast, too many meetings. I used to chase meetings, chase money, and that's what ultimately probably burnt me out. And we just spoke about Greg Hancock, going on for years after. I was probably burnt, more so the travel and all that, it really got to me, and England, traffic jams, all that sort of stuff, it killed me. So, probably the big thing would have been maybe shut down a league. Everybody was shutting down England, just doing Sweden and Poland. But I lived in England. I used to, enjoy riding at Swindon. It was pretty easy. It was my hometown. So probably if I had to shut down a little bit more, a little bit earlier, with a few leagues, and I would have lengthened my career. But no regrets. As I say, not becoming world champion doesn't burn me every day when I wake up. So I was happy with what I achieved, and so be it. I think chase what you can. Definitely, I think get to England. I always felt as though England was the great place to do your apprenticeship. It didn't have the best tracks. It had the tight ones, it had the bumpy ones, it had the slick ones, all those sort of elements that make you a better rider, I think. So I think get to England, do your apprenticeship, and then spread your wings and go from there. And then when you get into your career, maybe don't chase so much, and try and put a little bit more quality in than quantity.